It is important to remember the tragedy of her death belongs to her. I've often said that to dismiss my own feelings about it, as if I had no right to view it as my tragedy. The consequence belongs to me, and to the men who killed her. And to me because I couldn't stop them. I didn't stop them. That was my issue with it all, and I felt like I failed her.
Welcome back. That was an excerpt from Kelsey Grammer's new memoir, Karen. A brother remembers. In it, he pays tribute to his sister Karen's life and tells the story of her senseless death, murdered at the age of just 18. Kelsey, you were 20 at the time. When I read that, and even hearing you read it aloud, that guilt, that survivor's guilt, as some people have described it, feeling that you could control something that no one could control other than the two individuals who carried out this act. It becomes a part of your journey throughout, and you see it in the book. Going back to needing to go back to Colorado Springs to where this happened, you wrote in the book, her death, her final breath, I saw them both, and I came here as a witness to fulfill my promise. Your memoir reads like a life really consumed by promises, meant to heal, but you're chasing.
Right.
You know, you talk about your struggles with addiction, your struggles with alcohol, that you're looking to reverse time, and it's not possible.
Right.
You went back into, as they say, the belly of the beast of this. I can't imagine again.
Well, I wanted to show up in a way I couldn't when she was killed. I wanted to be there and to hold her and to kiss her goodbye, to be her, just to be her brother, to be her big brother in a way that it was clearly just symbolic and, you know, a postscript to all that had actually happened. But in that moment when I stood there where she did die, I felt I held her. And then of course she said to me in my head, you know, she said, thanks for coming. You know,
And you write her voice throughout this.
Yeah, well, she's with me the whole time.
She's with you the whole time. And it is, I thought, tell me why, because in the book, you hear Karen through Kelsey.
Right.
And you believe these are words coming from her to your mind, to the page.
It's as if she was dictating to me. It was pretty extraordinary. The first time I wrote, I was told by it's a very odd kind of sequence of events that brought me to trying to write this book finally. But a medium named Esther was somebody I'd been placed in contact with as a friend said, this gal's pretty talented, you should meet her. So we met over the phone, and I hear a little rattle and a little snaky kind of sound, and I think, oh boy, here we go. You know, there it is. You know, okay, Esther, what now? And then she starts this reading. She says, oh, your sister Karen wants you to tell her story. I thought, okay. And I liked how she said, tell her story. I thought, well, how would I go about doing that? I thought, what do I do? Get some pictures or whatever? And I said, I don't even know if I have any pictures of her. And then she said, oh, no, she's telling me that you have a lot of pictures. Oh, okay. And of course, then, I mean, I put it in the book, actually, at one point. There's a sequence of pictures where she's, I've got the note that I was writing on, the back of an envelope I was writing, tell Karen's story on. And then about a month later, I discovered on the dining room table for about a year and a half were at least 300, 400 pictures.
Yeah.
Sure, it was just great.
Why did you think you hadn't
I
kept
don't,
these
you know, it's
pictures
because my mom had died, and I kind of packed up her house, but
Yeah.
people helped me pack up her house. A lot of it were in those boxes. You know, you don't find these things. They're like, you know, it's like buried treasure. And some of the pictures I found, I mean, that's a picture of my grandmother with Karen when she was just first born.
And you write about your grandmother and your mother because at the time you had to travel to Colorado.
I went to Colorado to identify her body,
identify your sister who had been labeled as a Jane Doe.
Yeah, for a while, quite a while.
For a while. And you had to shepherd the family through and be the front of it. What I didn't know, and as I said, I knew some of Karen's story I did not know that your father was murdered
Yeah.
in St. Thomas in 1960.
1968.
68. You had also lost
My granddad.
your granddad
Yeah, 2 years before.
and your twin brothers who
That was after.
that was after.
Yeah, that was after Karen.
That was after Karen. But what I guess what I'm forming here is though this life where you reference breaking this curse. That it's
Right.
interesting that you'd go to the medium and try to look for these clues to
Yeah.
piece it together, while also at one point in the book referring to what you saw as somewhat of a family curse.
Well, that was my dad's dad, my grandfather, which I didn't know him very well. I barely knew my father. I just met him once. When I called and told him about Karen, he said, this family's cursed. That's where that came from.
That's where that came from.
Yeah. And I've always decided that I've always thought that I was going to be the one that would end that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to live to be 160. I tell my children this all the time. And they're very alarmed by it. They're always thinking, how's that going to look, Dad? Well, it's going to look pretty good. I'm going to be,
You are so masterful
vital.
at weaving in this raw pain that you are still dealing with.
Yeah,
with
always.
that charm that we all have fallen in love with from afar.
Thank you.
Where does that come from? Is that something you were born with? Because people have mechanisms of dealing with grief.
Yeah, maybe it's something I was born with, at least part of it. I mean, I'm an optimist.
You're optimistic. You've dealt with a great amount of pain, but you have questioned faith.
Well, there was a time when I said
Yeah.
no thanks. Yeah, I said, okay, if this is how it's working, I'm not particularly happy with how you're
Which
going
is
about
understandable.
it. And I
with
said,
all
okay, I'll take over from here.
You'll take
Which,
over.
of course, was not really happening. That wasn't really what was going on. But that's why I quote the story about, I don't. Do you guys know what it's called? Footsteps in the Sand.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you saw one footsteps. That's what I was carrying. Yeah, that always blew me away. Yeah. I mean,
Talk to me
we
about
got a
that.
divorce. We got a separation agreement for a while.
You and God
And I
had a
said,
separation
I haven't
agreement.
got time for this right now. And then,
But what you didn't know, like
yeah,
footsteps.
he was always there, and it was always going to be there. And thank you. Yeah, and I had a wonderful experience. Most of this is in the book, actually, with Greg Laurie. I did this film a while ago called Jesus Revolution. Oh, thank you. And I got to know Greg Laurie, who's kind of the seminal character in it. And, we would sit and talk a bit about this stuff and about God and where is he. And so I went to, he has this thing called Harvest he does every season. And hundreds of thousands of people are there, and it's an extraordinary thing. So my daughter Faith actually said, I want to go down. When he says, if you want to come down and join us, come on down. Yeah. And my daughter Faith said, I want to go down there. She was 10 at the time. And so I stood on this baseball field thinking to myself, so where were you? Where were you? And I just heard and the voice came and said, I was right there. I was right there. Mm. And I believe that now, that he was there to take her, that he was there with her, for her, and that he's always there. Jesus, and I had a moment on the plane flying home, and I write about as well, that just suddenly I'm sitting there, and there he is, right here, talking to me, and said, I got it. I'll take it. I said, you don't have to. I've got this one. This is mine. He said, no. This was never yours. This is mine.
It's mine.
More
with Kelsey after the break.
Coming up, Kelsey on his sister's killer.
Any human being, no matter how unimaginably cruel they have been at some point in their lifetime, is capable of doing good. And so that's what I hold out for. But I don't believe he should be free.
And Tamron shares her own truth about forgiveness.
I tell people, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm not God, and I haven't heard that message yet.